Hello everyone, this is Avrila Jahun, and we are going to talk about War and Peace of Leo Tolstoy, together with my classmate Ezadin Waraji, Ami Palisco, and Christian Calaor. Now, are you ready for our book review? Now let's hear about it. War and Peace, or more commonly known as the book of most people have liked about reading, is the definition of epic. This book is big and intimidating, but it's often the crowd jewel for readers. Why? Because it's arguably the greatest novel ever written. So naturally, if you read it, you must be part of the in-crowd or elite readers of the literary world. As the title of Leo Tolstoy novel War and Peace promises, the book develops in two dimensions. The war dimension relates to the 1812 French invasion of Russia, while the peace concerns the life of the Russian society against the backdrop of that invasion. The word peace, mere in Russian, has multiple meanings. First, mere as the state of no war, mere as society, and mere as the world. Now let's hear Mr. Waraji for the background of the author.
Good day everyone. Today we're going to talk about the author's biography of Leo Tolstoy, which is the author of the novel War and Peace. Leo Tolstoy was born on September 9, 1828. He was a Russian writer best known for his epic novels. Born into an aristocratic Russian family, Tolstoy wrote realistic fiction and semi-autobiographical novels before shifting into more moral and spiritual works. Tolstoy was born into a very old Russian aristocratic family whose lineage was quite literally the stuff of Russian legend. According to family history, they could trace their family tree back to a legendary nobleman named Indris, who had left the Mediterranean region and arrived in Chernigov, Ukraine in 1353 with his two sons and an entourage of approximately 3,000 people. His descendant then was nicknamed Tolsty, meaning fat, by Vasily II of Moscow, which inspired the family name. Other historians trace the family's origin to 14th or 16th century Lithuania with the founder named Pyotr Tolstoy. He was born on the family's estate, the fourth of 5 children born to Count Nikolai Ilyich Tolstoy and his wife. The Countess Maria Tolstoya. Because of the conventions of Russian noble titles, Tolstoy also bore the title of Count despite not being his father's eldest son. His mother died when he was 2 years old and his father when he was 9. So he and his siblings were largely brought up by other relatives. In 1844, at the age of 16, he began studying law and languages at Kazan University, but was apparently a very poor student and soon left to return into life of leisure. Tolstoy did not marry until his 30s, after the death of one of his brothers hit him hard. On September 23, 1862, he married Sophia Andreeva Burst, known as Sonia, who was only 18 years old at that time, and was the daughter of a doctor at court. Between 1863 and 1888, the couple had 13 children. 8 survived to adulthood. The marriage was reportedly happy and passionate in the early days, despite Sonia's discomfort with her husband's wild past. But as time went on, their relationship deteriorated and turned into deep unhappiness. Tolstoy's journey from dissolute aristocrat to socially agitating writer was shaped heavily by few experiences in his youth, namely his military service and his travel in Europe. In 1851, after running up significant debts from gambling, he went with his brother to join the army. During the Crimean War from 1853 to 1856, Tolstoy was an artillery officer and served in Sevastopol during the famous 11-month siege of the city between 1854 and 1855. Tolstoy's magnum opus was 1869 War and Peace, a massive and sprawling narrative encompassing nearly 600 characters, including several historical figures and several characters strongly based on real people Tolstoy knew. The epic story deals with Tolstoy's theories about history, spanning many years and moving through wars, family complication, romantic intrigues, and court life, and ultimately intended as an exploration of the eventual causes of the 1825 Decembrist Revolt. Interestingly, Tolstoy did not consider War and Peace to be his first novel. He considered it a prose epic, not a true novel. In his earlier works, Tolstoy was largely concerned with depicting what he saw around him, particularly at the intersection of the public and private spheres. War and Peace and Anna Karenina, for instance, both told epic stories with serious philosophical underpinnings. War and Peace spent significant time criticizing the telling of history, arguing that it's the smaller event that make history, not the huge events and famous heroes. Anna Karenina, meanwhile, centers on personal themes such as betrayal, love, lust, and jealousy, as well as turning a close eye on the structures of Russian society, both in the upper echelons of the aristocracy and among the peasantry. Later in life, Tolstoy's writing book took a turn into explicitly religious, moral, and political. He wrote at length about his theories of pacifism and anarchism, which tied into his highly individualistic interpretation of Christianity as well. Tolstoy's texts from his later eras were no longer novels with intellectual themes, but straightforward essays, treatises, and other non-fiction work, and the work of inner perfection were among things that Tolstoy advocated for in his writings. By the end of his life, Tolstoy had reached a breaking point with his beliefs, his family, and his health. He finally decided to separate from his wife Sonia, who vehemently opposed many of the ideas and was intensely jealous of the attention he gave to his followers over her. In order to escape with the least amount of conflict, Tolstoy slipped away secretively, leaving home in the middle of the night during the cold winter. His health had been declining and he had renounced the luxuries of his aristocratic lifestyle. After spending a day traveling by train, his destination somewhere in the south, he collapsed due to pneumonia at the Astopovo railway station. Despite the summoning of his personal doctors, he died that day on November 20, 1910. Tolstoy's legacy cannot be overstated. His moral and philosophical writings inspired Gandhi, which means that Tolstoy's influence can be felt in contemporary movement of non-violent resistance. War and Peace is a staple on countless lists of the best novel ever written, and it has remained highly praised by the literary establishment since its publication.
So I will discuss the summary of the novel entitled Peace and War. The fears of Russia begin to rise after Napoleon conquers Western Europe. A socially awkward, illegitimate son of wealthy Count Pierre Besukhov and an intelligent, ambitious son of retired General Andrew Bolkonsky are introduced. In early 1900, St. Petersburg, the novel takes place. We also meet the Kuragin family, including Vasily, Anatole, and Helen. These are the Rostovs, a noble Moscow family with a vivacious Natasha, a stoic Sonia, and an impulsive Nicholas who has joined the army led by the old General Kutuzov. The Russians fight Napoleon alongside the Austrians. Andrew and Nicholas go. Andrew is wounded at Austerlitz and left for dead. Leonor Kuragina, sole heir to his father's fortune, marries Pierre. Helen cheats on Pierre in a duel with her seducer. Liz has a son just as Andrew returns home to his estate, surprising his family. Liz dies in childbirth, leaving Andrew to raise his son with Mary, his devout aunt. In disillusionment with marriage, Pierre joins Freemasonry. Andrew, a Russian reformer, doubts him. Nicholas' gambling debt has hampered the Rostov family's finances. The Otradno estate may be sold. Nicholas is encouraged to marry a wealthy heiress despite his earlier promise to Sonia. Napoleon and Tsar Alexander reconcile. Nicholas stays in the army. Then she grows up, goes to her first ball, and falls in love with a variety of men before meeting Andrew. Andrew's father disapproves and tells him to wait a year. Andrew goes traveling, leaving Natasha to her reluctance. His father becomes irritable and cruel towards Mary after Andrew leaves. Anatole Kuragin adores Natasha. Her plan to elope with Anatole backfires. Andrew returns home and disowns Natasha for her Anatole connection. Pierre is drawn to Natasha's comfort. Natasha is ill. Then in 1812, Napoleon invades Russia, and Alexander reluctantly declares war. Andrew re-enlists Pierre, thinks he's on a mission to kill Napoleon as a result of this. They tell Mary and Andrew's father to flee before the French arrive. Prince dies as French arrive. The peasants turn on Mary when she is forced to leave her estate. Nicholas aids Mary and Nicholas sends romance. A key battle in the Russian-French conflict. A Borodino, it has little impact on St. Petersburg high society. Helen seeks an annulment from Pierre to marry a foreign prince. Pierre is now insane, alone in Moscow, distraught over the news. They help wounded soldiers instead of fleeing. Natasha's brother joins the army. Andrew is wounded and the Rostovs leave town. Pierre, half crazed in Moscow, sees anarchy, looting, fire, and murder. He is captured by the French after saving a young girl from an inferno. Pierre witnesses the execution of several of his prison mates and befriends Platon Karatev. So Nicholas and Mary can be married in honor of Sonia. In order to see Andrew, Natasha and Mary become closer. Andrew dies forgiving Natasha. General Kutuzov leads Russian troops back to Moscow after Borodino. The French make Pierre and other Russian PWs march. Meanwhile, Platon is sick and shot. Fighting breaks out between Russians and retreating French. Petya is murdered. Pierre falls ill for 3 months after his liberation. Then Natasha reciprocates his feelings. In 1813, Pierre and Natasha have 4 kids. Natasha turns into a Russian matron. Nicholas marries Mary, resolving his family's finances. He also fixes Mary's family's war-damaged estate. Despite some disagreements, Nicholas and Mary are a happy family. So I will tackle about the plot, characterization, suspense, style, and etc. about the novel entitled Peace and War. The tension between 2 constant and interlocking orientations, the collective and personal, gives War and Peace its complexity and sweep. So the protagonists are dubious, individuals seeking self-definition. They're also part of a hidden mass movement. Moment-to-moment experiences of individuals and their long-term search for meaning are intertwined. In the novel's dramatic conflicts, a visit to the Balkanki's country home is a perfect example of Tolstoy's double meaning. The old prince rules and dominates his family. Bleak Hills is a working Russian model. They also represent Tsar-era Russian personality types. Andrew's growing awareness of the toll repression takes on the soul of the oppressor. In this case, his father prompts him to use his intellectual as a weapon. In contrast to Nikolai, Pierre tries to define individuality with reason and emotions. Natasha's career is significant. Her emotional growth mirrors Russia's historic change. It is also the time when Russia is rising up against foreign invaders, and Natasha is coming of age. The need for wars is historical and symbolic. Events like people have two sides. An example is the evacuation of Moscow. On a personal level, citizens believe they leave the city to avoid foreign occupation. Napoleon's glory dream is dashed and his conquest is futile. The polar qualities of war and peace provide the physical and emotional settings of incidents that further investigate the duality between collective and individual life. The perspective Tolstoy achieves from these twice-told incidents deepens our understanding of the moral truths he wishes to emphasize. Tolstoy uses this duality to enhance our feelings for the event that changed the course of the war. It is a sunny day when the first cannon blast of Skongrebben lifts the spirits of the bored but gay soldiers. Conversely, the rising sun illuminates a scene of carnage and desperation, where the bleak survivors face death. Numerous minor incidents show how Tolstoy uses war and peace settings to reveal new aspects of situations. Pierre, for example, meets Osip Badziev on a peaceful journey and is transformed. With the help of Karativ, Baziev's spiritual counterpart, Osip influences Pierre's eventual conversions during Besuhov's wartime experiences.
There are things you need to know about War and Peace. First, people change. The characters in War and Peace endure extreme experiences and emerge at the end as quite different people. The miracle of the book is that the Natasha who falls in love with anyone and everyone in the ballrooms of the opening is recognizably the same woman who withdraws from society at the end. 2. There is no hero and no heroine. This is the story of a group of people living within a society. Andrei Bolkonsky is not Tolstoy's hero, and Natasha is not a romantic heroine. It forgives ideas of heroism most beautifully in the last words any character speaks in the book as Andrei's son thinks of his father at the end of the first epilogue. 3. The novel has a particular technical feature. It passes from mind to mind, showing us the world as a consciousness moves through it. It doesn't mean that the consciousness of the movement has any particular importance, and it is just how these events were seen by one particular observer, and another observer will take up the baton in a page or two. 4. This is not a historical novel, but a novel that discusses events of the recent past within the memory of many of Tolstoy's first readers. Its details are not exquisite recreations of lost practice, but ways in which an individual psychology can engage with the real world. It is about history, and both the Tsar and Napoleon make awesome appearances, but it is not about the historical, and it has no costume department.
For the conclusion of the story, War and Peace, between 1965 and 1967, Leo Tolstoy, a Crimean War veteran, published War and Peace as a serialized novel in the periodical Russian Messenger. Napoleon invasion of Russia in 1912 and the subsequent capture and destruction of Moscow had a catastrophic effect on the number of aristocratic families. According to the novel, which was published in entirety in 1869, it can be read from a multitude of perspectives, much like any great work, but there are at least two key themes that jump out. To begin, there is the folly of war and its devastation of the lives of both the rich and the poor. Second, through debauchery, married life, the Masonic League, and the public duty. Pierre Vesukov seeks an acceptable meaning for his life. Nothing stratifies Pierre until he finds solace and significance in the ordinary lives of peasants and the mundane aspects of everyday life. He realized that life itself is a paradoxical meaning of existence only after pain and deprivation. The novel explores the devastating aspects of pride and ambition, as well as the tranquil reassurance that comes with engaging with life on its own terms. Throughout the 20th century, it has remained a striking and devastating statement on the horrors of war, as well as an inspiration of extreme fascism. It provides a useful foundation for the book's numerous chapters, which have looked at both conflict and peace as a companions of the world's fates. My first prediction with the epic novel War and Peace, for me it was all conflicts of leaders, since Russia was being mentioned and the author of the story, Leo Tolstoy, was also Russian. I think the author Leo Tolstoy experienced the war during the invasion in Russia and exploited his views to make an epic entitled War and Peace. I believe that the epic novel War and Peace would be a happy ending because what I see from the title itself, War and Peace, the war comes first and of course the peace. That's how we perceive that the epic, of course it is defined as a heroic view actions of the protagonist to defeat or end the conflict. I believe after all this war in Russia which declared by Napoleon as stated, there would be a happy and a peaceful life of the characters.